Okay, so the next session would be conducted by Mr. Akshay Bahadur. Okay, Akshay Bahadur would be talking about inferring human features using deep networks. Akshay Bahadur is a software engineer at Symantec and also a Google developer expert in machine learning. Akshay's interest towards computer science sparked when he was working on a women safety application, which was aimed towards women welfare in India. And since then, he has been incessantly working on improving his skills. He stumbled upon machine learning then. He has made several open source contributions in the field of ML. He has made successful prototypes like autonomous cars, alphabet recognition, cancer classification, gesture recognition using learning models. These prototypes showcase the power of deep learning and how they can help different organizations implement learning models to solve business cases. Okay, he has developed many such models, which are also focused on his website. Okay, so over to you, Akshay sir. We'll look forward for your session.
Uh, all right. Thank you so much. Um, I hope you guys can. Let me share my screen quickly. Sujit, if you can stop sharing the screen. Yeah. All right. Uh, Thank you so much. So, just wanted to say that the previous session by Rohit was very amazing. I probably haven't seen such a insightful session on medical imaging in such a long time. So, uh, a big thanks to Rohit for presenting the session. So a couple of things that he mentioned that I really resonated with me was that in medical imaging you cannot take any shortcuts. I mean the amount of work that you put in and the predictions that you make using learning models can save lives. So there are no shortcuts that are involved. Luckily, because I'm working on not very critical use cases, we'll be talking about how can we take shortcuts and still develop learning models which are pretty useful. So this the talk is going to be about inferring human networks. Inferring human features using deep networks. So basically, we'll try to look at how different parts of human bodies can be used in solving different use cases, like day-to-day use cases. And then finally, we'll have a Q&A session where we'll try to discuss what are the important aspects or the lowlights that a person goes through when they're working with computer vision and machine learning. So a big thanks to the Pioneer community for hosting the event. I think this is a great event. A bit about myself: I'm an Intel software innovator, and I'm also a Google developer expert in machine learning. Uh, Before we start, there's an important link. So if you want to follow along the presentation slides, go to bit.ly/pi-ai, and you'll be redirected to my GitHub page, which is going to have the links to the slides, as well as you can also open certain issues if you have any questions or if you want more additional information regarding this presentation. So without further ado, we'll start with the presentation. So it's going to be a short presentation. I'm not going to take much more than 30 minutes of your time. So and we'll start with a basic intuition. So we'll start with a very simple use case of digit classification, which you might have heard of. Uh, so let's look at first. Let's look at the data set. So the data set will look like something like this. Given the image of the digit, you have to predict which class does it belong to. So for this particular case, the image is of digit 3 and it is labeled as the number 3. So we have 10 different classes. Okay, so if we try to dig deep into this image, we'll see that it is a 28 by 28 matrix, and these are all the pixel intensities. So what we recognize clearly is that the lowest point of our image is of intensity 0, and the highest point is around 255, which is the maximum pixel intensity at any point. Now, as Rohit mentioned, one of the important aspects that comes in picture is called as normalization, where you set the lower range and the upper range of a data set. And this is very helpful in certain techniques. Of course, it's not useful in all the techniques, but it's very helpful because it helps your model to converge faster. And we'll just look at that. So what I've done is I've divided the entire data set by 255, which means that I've divided the entire data set by the maximum intensity of a pixel. So I made sure that the data set will lie between 0 and 1. And this is how what we see. So when we print out the normalized data, we see that the lowest value is 0 and the uppermost value is 1. So the spread, which was around 255 units, has now been drawn back to only 1. So this is very important, and let's look at how exactly it affects our learning model. So a bit of details about the data set. So it has around 60,000 training examples, 10,000 test examples, and this is a very basic data set. We are only working with black and white images. There are no different channels, and we are working with a very simple model. So we are not even using a convolutional network. We are not using CNNs. We are using simple networks, and we're trying to see if a normalization technique helps us. And this normalization techniques comes from mathematics. So as Rohit also mentioned that if you have to get better at something, you have to learn the basics of it. So if you want to get into medical imaging, studying medicine is a very important concept. In the same way, if you want to get into machine learning, learning about mathematics, statistics, and all these important concepts are very, very important. And let's see, and normalization is a concept which comes from mathematics. Okay, so this is how a model will look like. And what I'm doing is I'm just calling model.fit, and I'm trying to see if I'm trying to plot the graph. So this is the unnormalized data set. So after 2 epochs, what we see is that the accuracy is around 26%, which is okay. It's not very good, and the loss is around 11%. Sorry, 11 points, which is decent, but we would need much more than that. But if you look at the normalized data set, so now I'm calling the fit function on the normalized data set. Immediately, what I'll see is that within these 2 steps, my accuracy has actually increased to 93%. So a simple mathematical technique, which we studied in maybe class 8th, has helped us improve our accuracy by almost 4 times. So the one concept that I wanted to mention is that whenever you are working with machine learning, learning all the algorithms is very good, and of course is going to help you eventually. But having the basics is, I think, one of the most important aspects that I wanted to pinpoint on. Okay, so and then of course this is the graph plot of that. So in the first case, you see the accuracy and the loss for unnormalized data set, which is not performing that well, and in case of normalization, our model is performing quite well. Now we'll come back to our initial topic. Topic was see, recognizing human features. So we are trying to see if different human features or different human body parts can be used for training learning models. So the important concept that we first need to understand is how can we do that. So for that, the first phase is we want to just feed content through our webcam. So our webcam is more like of an input to us. So with computer vision, with image processing, we can actually give input to the system, and that input can then be used to make predictions. So before that, you have to learn about OpenCV. OpenCV is actually a computer vision library. So we'll not go into the details, but I'll just share a couple of insights that I have. Okay, so what we'll do is, let's say if I have to find something through the webcam, first I have to start reading it. So the first line, capability, does the same thing. And then the second line I call a function. We'll discuss about the function in detail, but it gets some contours. So contours, we'll see this word again and again, contours. Basically, contours mean that there is some sort of a object that is present, and we have to get the length and breadth of that. So that is basically on a high level if you want to understand what contours is. And then if you get the contours, if we have something on the webcam that is of interest, and then we get the max out of it. So this is what we do. We get the max of the contour, and then once we know that this is our object of interest, and the last time we'll make some predictions. Okay. So very basic. We don't have to worry about a lot of things. Now let's look at the function. So what the function does is that it calls certain filtering functions in detail. So what we see is CV2 dot any function is actually a function that is inbuilt in the computer vision library. And right now, what we're trying to do in the last line, we are trying to convert the image to grayscale, because you don't want to work with all the three channels. You just want to work with the black and white channel. Second, we want to do some blurring because you don't want to work on the sharp objects. And then we call certain functions which we'll not discuss in detail, but the last line is important. So what we do is we call contours of it. And CV2.find contours is something that we already discussed, that we have to get the contours which are our object of interest. So CV2.find contours helps us do that. And we are getting the contours back. And once we have that contours back, we are using the same thing to make predictions on our model. Okay. And if you want to have a look at what exactly it does, this is something that I developed, I think, when I initially started. Let me quickly go through that. Yeah. So this is, if you can see the video, right now I am giving it content by writing it on a piece of paper and then showing it to the webcam. And because I can see that the number 7, which is drawn in blue color, is our object of interest, I'm using that information to directly use that while we are building a network. So we don't have to actually send images, via file. We can do that via webcam. Now the second point is that now we are showing images. Now what about if I want to write something to the webcam? Okay. So we'll use similar techniques. Contours are something that will help us. Contours are nothing but getting our object of interest from the entire webcam. But at the same time, we have to have some filtering in place. In this case, because we have to get back to the basics, I guess, what we do is we do an in-range function. Okay. So first of all, we do a couple of filtering. We convert our image to an HSG format, which is kind of like black and white itself. Then we do a masking. Masking is basically we find a specific range of pixel values, and if a particular object lies in that image value, then that means that this is our object of interest. So right now, while writing, I'm going to hold a small object of the color green in my hand, and I have specified the range of the color green in RGB format. So the lower green corresponds to the lower spectrum of the green color, and the upper green is the upper spectrum. And then we are doing a couple of different filters. Basically, erode and dilate will make sure that if there is any abnormality in the image, any outliers, it's going to erode that, and then it's going to dilate it again, so that my image is pretty much standardized. And then again, our friend, and then of course, what we do is we do a bitwise and with the image and the mask. So the mask is of green color and the image. So we'll only be getting a green color from the entire image. Okay. And again, the last line is CV2.find contour. So once we are trying to get only the green color images from the entire screen, we'll do a find contours. Okay. And then if the length of the contours are greater than the one, that is if I have a specific object, then what I'll do is I'll keep on adding that to my that is I'm going to keep on tracing out the paths. So let's say if I'm writing something, I'm not going to just start and stop at the same time. I'll start, that is I'll show show a object of color green, and then my computer vision application will trace all the paths of that green color. Let's say if I'm trying to draw something, it's going to trace all the path of the object. And once that happens, I'm going to find a minimum and closing circle, which is basically nothing but just drawing the uh, detecting that green color object in the entire screen. And then the last line PTS dot append left is basically I'm appending that, I'm keeping track of the entire path. Okay. And then once that happens, and then of course and then at the same time I have to also understand that I have to stop at some point. And when will I stop? I'll stop when I've removed the object from the screen. That is, I've drawn the entire picture or the entire digit in this case, and then I will withdraw that object. So now there will be no contours present on the screen. So then what happens? Then I'll see if the path that was being traced is present or not. If it is being present, then I'm going to get that path. I'm going to make it into an image. I'm going to perform blurring, and then the last line is find contours. So then I'll find contours on that, uh, and then once that happens, I'm going to send it for predictions. Okay. So very simple technique. Uh, we are taking a lot of shortcuts in this because it works well for us. And using this technique, I've developed something called as DG encoder, which is basically a machine learning model trying to draw a digit from its own memory. So I've trained a model which has all the digits in memory itself. So and then I'm using a green color object, and uh, the computer vision application is trying to first draw the path of that object on screen, and once I remove that object, then my prediction happens. So now if you can see on the left, we have three different networks. We have a simple network, we have a deep network, and we also have a CNN network. So the CNN networks on the rightmost performs really well because it's able to draw very well from its own memory. So this is what you could do if you have if you want to write something on the screen. This is a shortcut for that, and other than that, there are other, of course, applications that you could use to solve a use case. Now coming back, so we have worked with mostly using some color objects or using some specific objects to trace out its path. Now we want to work on the entire hand gestures in detail. So let's say if I want to work on some hand gestures, uh, let's first look at the use case. Okay, so basically, let's say if I have the data set ready, and this is how a data set looks like. So this is the image of the hand, and then of course this is the image of the same hand doing different signals. And we have a simple model. It's a CNN model, and we are trying to make sure that uh, we have different number of classes. So each gesture will correspond to a specific, uh, meaning, and then I'm simply doing a model.fit on that. So I'm trying to just train a model, and then this is my model. This is how my model will look like, and then my model performed really well. So the accuracy is around 96%, which is quite good enough for us. Now, how did we get the model, or how did we get the filtered images from the entire data set? So we are not working with the actual images; we are working with the filtered images. And this actually helps us because we are working with black and white images. We are not really concerned about all the different channels. At the same time, we also want to make sure that our model is fast enough so that it can work in real time. So if I want to do the same thing, if I want to use this data set and perform predictions in real time, I have to have some filters which just filter out my hand gesture, so just my hand from the entire image. So we'll use the same technique that we have used earlier. uh, so what we do is, again, we have an in range function, which basically selects the color range from a specific lower range to an upper range. So in this case, this lower range and the upper range is for skin color, which is of course static in nature, but you can of course have a more dynamic approach to it. But since we are using a lot of shortcuts, I think this will make sense. And then at the same time, we are doing a bitwise and with the image and our mask. So basically, we'll get only my hand colored images from the entire image or from the entire webcam feed. And then at the same time, the last line, which is of course important, is we are finding contours, which are we are finding our region of interest. And all the lines are between are just used to make sure that my filtering is correct. So to make sure that the model is that my computer vision application is working as expected, and going to smooth out a lot of problems in between. So again, if we get some contours, you get the max of it, and then once you have the max, we do a predict on that, which is this. We are doing a Keras predict. So I'll send the image, and then of course I'll have a model as well in place. So this is how it looks like. I have worked with it on a couple of projects. I did this back in 2018, I guess. So as you can see in the image, I'm not working on the entire image, but I'm only working on the filtered part of my hands. So this makes my model works extremely fast. At the same time, I'm able to provide a more unique approach. Not a unique approach, I'd say, but a more uh, fun approach. I think TensorFlow.js is something that is of course more is quite unique, and I feel if I have to compare these applications, then of course TensorFlow.js is something that is really helpful because it directly helps you run the machine learning model from your web browser. And then of course you can go one step ahead, and you can have an object detection API as well. So we have the same technique, but the object detection API uh, is detecting my hand gestures. So this is not a static predictor or static locator. We are using an object detection model. So even if I move my hand from in the entire image, it's still going to get the same. It's going to get my it's going to localize my hand gestures, and then I'm going to send that image, filter it out, and then send it for predictions. So even though I'm using an object detection API which performs a lot of operations and makes the makes it slower, much slower, but still I'm able to do it pretty quickly. At the same time, we can also have some fun with it. So let's say if I look at this one. So if I look at uh, let's see, yeah. So if I look at this application, which is kind of similar to what we have done. So it's a game for rock paper scissors lizard Spock. So you might have heard of this game, which based on different gestures, you have different tools. I'm not sure exactly why it is not being able to play. But anyway, you can have a look at the entire presentation back when you get some time. But anyway, we'll move forward. Okay, I think there is something wrong with the yeah. So we are back. I think so. Now we have worked with hand gestures. We have worked with writing on the screen. We have worked with showing something to the screen. And now we'll work on some predetermined models or pre-trained models. We are working with eye aspect ratio, which can come for different use cases. And a lot of people have already done a lot of work on that. So in this case, we'll be using a pre-trained model. So this is DLib. So if you have heard of, uh, if you have followed some blogs by PyMed Search, DLib and IMUtils are two packages that are specifically used for pre-trained facial key point detection model. So basically, you don't have to worry about a lot of things. It already has certain key points that you can use. So right now I'm using a face detector model from it, and then there's something called as an eye aspect ratio function which I have defined based on the different key points of from my eyes. So the only thing that you need to understand is basically if your eye is closed, it's going to have a specific ratio, and based on that you can specify if the person is his eyes are closed or not, right? So similar thing, we are doing a cab.read, which we are starting uh, our, our webcam, and then we are calling a detect function, which is of course an individual function from dlib library. And once we have that, we are trying to just get all the left eye and the right eye, which we can directly do it because our pre-trained model has the ability to give us the ratio for that, and then we are calling the eye aspect ratio on both the eyes, and then at the same time we are drawing contours on both the eyes, and this is our function which actually tells us if the if the eye aspect ratio is less than a threshold value or not. And this can be used on different things. So the first technique that I have used is Gaussian detection, which is I think pretty common, and you can find a lot of examples on the internet. I think did this back in 2018. I referred to PyMed search blog back then. So yeah, and then of course you can use a similar technique to have a Morse code decoder as well. So people who cannot yeah, speak or make gestures, they can use similar techniques with their eyes and talk or communicate in dots and dashes. Okay, so we'll not go into the details of this. You can have a look at that with the slides, when because you also already have information about this. So we'll move forward. Now we'll talk about I think there's something slightly disturbing with my laptop. Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope you guys can see my screen because there is some issue, I guess, while I'm playing the videos. So I'll skip the videos. I'll try to directly. You can see the videos because you already have the links to the slides. So we'll talk about facial recognition. So this is going to be an application on from a research paper called as FaceNet. So if you have heard of it, I think it's going to be pretty straightforward for you. So just give me a minute. Yes, I think it's yeah. So what we have is we have a function which is basically given the image of the face, I will develop an encoding from it, and this encoding can be just any arbitrary number based on my facial features. So I have a model, and this model is a pre-trained model, and it's a face-in model, and based on different faces, it has the ability to give a very specific or a very unique encoding to it. Okay, so the main concept that we are going to use is that every face will have different encodings. Okay, so what we are trying to do is that we are going to call a function image to encoding, which will get the image of the face and is going to call the encoding function to get the encoded value. And then I'm going to have a database of all the authentic users, and then I'm going to match the faces of it from the webcam itself. Okay, and then I'm going to calculate the distance between every entry in the database and then the encoding that I have just received from the webcam. And if it is less than a certain value, so this is the difference. I'm trying to find the difference in a vector space between between the face on the webcam and then all the faces in my database. And if it matches, then of course it means that the person is authenticated to use that service, or maybe basically is authenticated. So you're not going to need any special card or something. So if the distance that I have calculated is less than a specific distance, and this distance can of course vary from use case to use case. If it is less than that, then I'm going to say that the person is this and this, and he is authenticated. So right now I have only two people in my database. I have me and my brother who volunteered for this activity. So if I play the video, if I can play the video, uh, so we are using similar techniques. So basically, I'm sending the data for the face, and in runtime, it's trying to see if it gets any face matches in from the database or not. And at the same time, I also added another functionality that if I'm not looking at the camera, then or if my eyes are closed, which is of course come from a previous use case of eye aspect ratio. If my eyes are closed, then I'm not making predictions. Otherwise, I'm making predictions. So, and then of course, because now we have worked on hand gestures, we have worked on facial key points, we have worked on uh, 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 eye aspect ratio. We can combine all of that to work on something called as Indian Sign Language Recognition. So the aim of the project is to develop and standardize an Indian Sign Language recognition system throughout India. So sign language means that we communicate using hand gestures as well as your facial features. So I came up with the same technique. I used a lot of filtering. I had because I knew I could work with facial key points. I knew I could work with hand gestures. I filtered out all the required information from the entire image, and I was just working with a skeleton image of myself and the hand gestures. So this made my application work really fast. At the same time, it was not dependent on any external factors. So this is the output of it. So you can see that because even though I have a lot of background noise, my model is still only working on the facial key points and the hand gestures. You can have a look at the entire video when you get some time. And then finally, we have worked on a lot of things. We have worked on facial gestures, we have worked on hand gestures, we have worked on eye aspect ratios. Now, if I want to feed the entire post to it, so this is more of an open-ended question that I have. So we have something called as Open Post, which is an open source project provided to us by CMU, or Carnegie Mellon University, and this is the demo that they have. So basically, you don't need to do a lot of things. They already have a model in place. They have uh, a, a if you want to use something similar, you can do that, and they have a lot of options. So it's a library basically. You can download the library and use it for your own functionality. This is, I think, one of the videos that they shared. Now, if you want to have a look at what I did, how I did it, I use the same concept. If you have already seen my Mojinator project, which I've just shown you, I have tried to integrate that with OpenPose, although it's not very helpful, but it kind of gives you an idea of if you want to work on a pose detection or working with all the key points of a human body, you can similarly do that. So do check that project out. It's pretty helpful if you're working with computer vision and if you want to work on human features. So that was it from my side. We did cover a lot of things, and if you have any questions, I will more than happy to answer them. I think at the end of the session, and of course, feel free to share your feedback with me. You can reach out to me on my personal website at shemahav.com. And this is it from my side. The last point is, if you want to have a look at the link, it's bit.ly/ pi-ai. So you will find a lot of information and all the resources, references that I had used in the slide. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to just stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to uh, give the control to Stojit. I think he can take over, and the next session is going to be, I think, from Shahid.
Thanks a lot, Akshay sir. The session was really informative about the different hand gestures, facial recognition, eye recognition. It was really informative as well as exciting. Thanks a lot for talking about the code and the importance of capturing images through webcam. Okay, well, we really enjoyed your session, guys. If you have any questions, please put it in the link over there. Also, don't put a general question. Please be specific about what topic you have doubt. Okay, only then we would be answer it at the end. Okay. Other thing is, we would have a break of 10 minutes now, exactly 10 minutes. We would start at 6:41, and then the break would end at 6:51 p.m. Okay, so just mute yourself, okay, and take a stroll. Don't close the video. The same link would be continued. Okay, we would continue at 6:51 p.m. Okay, and we'll have Shayak sir session, as well as we'll have question and answer round. Okay, thanks a lot, guys.